Göbeklitepe, or Göbeklitepe, is a Neolithic archaeological site located 18 kilometers northeast of Şanlıurfa province in the southeastern Anatolia region of Turkey, near the Öğrenci village of Haliliye district. Dating back to around 9600 to 9500 BC, Göbeklitepe is the oldest known historical structure in the world. It is also referred to as the 0 point of history in some popular sources.
The structure consists of stone columns, the oldest known megaliths in the world, and a series of large circular structures. In this structure, thought to date back to the pre-pottery Neolithic age, 10 to 12 T-shaped obelisks are arranged in a circular plan, with stone walls in between. Two taller obelisks are placed opposite each other in the center of the structure.
Most of these obelisks have human hands and arms, various animals and abstract symbols depicted in relief or carving.
Some statues and stones unearthed in the excavations carried out in the region are currently exhibited in the Şanlıurfa Archaeology Museum. The motifs in question were used so intensively that they were not ornamental. It is thought that this composition expresses a story, a narrative, or a message. The most common animal motifs are the bull, wild boar, fox, snake, wild duck, and vulture.
The obelisks in question are interpreted as stylized human statues. The human hand and arm motifs found especially on the body of the D-shaped central obelisks eliminate any doubt on this subject. Therefore, the concept of obelisk is used as an auxiliary concept that does not specify a function. Essentially, these obelisks are stylized carvings depicting the human body in 3 dimensions.
However, it is not possible to date the earliest activities in Göbeklitepe at the moment. However, when these monumental structures are examined, it is thought that they have a history dating back to the Paleolithic age, and a few thousand years earlier to the Epi-Paleolithic. It is understood that Göbeklitepe was used as a cult center until 8000 BC and was abandoned after this date and was not used for other or similar purposes. All these and the monumental architecture unearthed in the excavations make Göbeklitepe a unique and special structure. In this context, it was included in the World Heritage Temporary List by UNESCO in 2011 and entered the permanent list in 2018. After other similar archaeological sites were found in the region, this archaeological site group, which included Göbeklitepe, was named Tas Tepeler in 2021. The hill, known locally as Visit to Göbeklitepe due to the presence of a tomb on the hill, is a 15-meter high hill covering an area of 300 by 300 meters on a limestone plateau approximately 1 kilometer long.
In addition to cult structures, there are also stone quarries and workshops on the plateau. The area where the findings were unearthed is a group of red soil hills with a diameter of about 150 meters, extending northwest-southeast, with slight depressions in between, and a steep-sided floodplain to the west. Graves were unearthed on the 2 highest hills. When looking north and east from the hill, the foothills of the Taurus Mountains and Karaka Mountains can be seen. When looking west, the mountain range separating the Şanlıurfa Plateau from the Euphrates Plain, and when looking south, the Harran Plain can be seen as far as the Syrian border. With this location, Göbeklitepe can see a very wide area, and it can also be seen from a very wide area. It is possible that this feature had an effect on the selection of this place for the construction of a cult structure. On the other hand, it is clear that a very high-quality stone source was needed for such monumental structures. The limestone used in Göbeklitepe is indeed a very hard stone that is not found everywhere. Even today, it is considered to be the highest quality limestone in the region. Therefore, this must be one of the reasons why the Göbeklitepe Plateau was chosen. It is also suggested that T-shaped columns have been found on the surface in centers such as Yeni Mahalle, Karahan, Sefertepe, and Hamzantepe in the Urfa region, and that similar architectural elements have been unearthed in the excavations at Navali Kori Mound, and that Göbeklitepe may therefore be related to these centers. It is also noted that the columns identified in these centers are smaller, 1.5 to 2 meters, than those unearthed in Göbeklitepe. As a result, it is suggested that Göbeklitepe may not be the only religious center in the Urfa region, and that there may be several other religious centers and cult structures. But the important issue at this point is that smaller-sized pillars in other settlements are similar to the later layer of Göbeklitepe.
Discovery, research, and excavations. Göbeklitepe was discovered in 1963 during the prehistoric research in southeastern Anatolia. Surface surveys conducted by Istanbul University and the University of Chicago. Several hills that did not appear ordinary and natural were covered with thousands of broken flint debris that were definitely made by human hands. Based on the findings collected from the surface of the mound during the surface surveys, it was concluded that this place could be one of the important settlements of the region, such as Biris Cemetery, Epipaleolithic and Soet Field 1, Paleolithic and Epipaleolithic, Soet Field 2, Pottery Pre-Neolithic, but no further studies were conducted. The region was first mentioned in Peter Benedict's article Survey Work in Southeastern Anatolia, published in 1980. However, it was still not discussed. Later, another survey was conducted in the region in 1994 by Klaus Schmidt from Heidelberg University. The monumental characteristics of the site and its archaeological value only attracted attention at that time. Excavations were initiated in 1995 after a surface survey conducted under the presidency of the Şanlıurfa Museum and the scientific consultancy of Harald Hauptmann from the German Archaeological Institute, in Istanbul. Immediately afterwards, excavations were initiated under the presidency of the Şanlıurfa Museum and the scientific consultancy of Klaus Schmidt. From 2007 onwards, excavations continued with the Council of Ministers determined excavation status and under the presidency of Professor Dr. Klaus Schmidt from the German Archaeological Institute. The Prehistory Institute of the German University of Heidelberg also participated in the project. Detailed excavations carried out over many years provided reliable scientific results that would allow us to rewrite the Neolithic revolution and the ground that prepared it.
Stratification. The excavations yielded 4 layers at Göbeklitepe. The topmost layer, layer 1, is the surface fill. The other 3 layers are layer 2, layer A, angular structures with obelisks, 8,000 to 9,000 BC. The layer is dated to the pre-pottery Neolithic age phase B. Structures with obelisks and a quadrangular plan were unearthed. Due to their similarities with the temple in Navali Kori, which is a contemporary, it was concluded that the structures in question were cult structures of the same type. In the lion structure, which is accepted as the typical structure of this layer, 2 of the 4 obelisks have a lion relief. Layer 2 round oval structures, evaluated as an intermediate layer. The structures of this layer, which is dated as the pre-pottery Neolithic age AB transition phase, were constructed in a round or oval plan. Layer 3 circular structures with obelisks, 9,000 to 10,000 BC. This lowest layer, dated to the pre-pottery Neolithic age phase A, is evaluated as the most important layer of Göbeklitepe. Klaus Schmidt, who has been heading the excavation work since the beginning, speaks of levels 2 and 3 in general, apart from the surface layer. According to Schmidt, level 3 is the layer represented by structures consisting of 10 to 12 T-shaped obelisks and circular walls surrounding them, and 2 higher and oppositely placed obelisks in the center, and is older. Level 2 is represented by smaller scale structures with a quadrangular plan, with 1 or 2 smaller obelisks, some of which do not have obelisks. He places level 3 as pre-pottery Neolithic A and level 2 in the early and middle phase of pre-pottery Neolithic B. Schmidt states that level 3 should be dated to the 10th millennium BC and the newer layer to the 9th millennium BC. However, radiocarbon dating of the material taken from the newly unearthed structures in level 3 shows that these structures are not exactly contemporary with each other. The earliest date comes from structure D. According to these data, structure D was built in the mid-10th millennium BC and abandoned in the same millennium. The outer wall of structure C appears to have been built later than structure D and structure A later than both. However, it is acknowledged that more data is needed to fully confirm this assessment.
Findings from the excavations at Göbeklitepe reveal no architectural remains that could have been used as residences. Instead, numerous monumental cult structures were unearthed. It is suggested that the obelisks used in these structures were cut from the surrounding rocky plateaus in one piece, processed, and then brought to Göbeklitepe. Some of these obelisks are up to 7 meters tall. Geophysical studies indicate that nearly 300 obelisks were used in the structures at Göbeklitepe, including those unearthed to date. There are obelisks in the region that have been cut but not processed, and there are a number of holes and incisions in the surrounding rocky plateaus whose purpose remains unknown. On the other hand, it is thought that the round and oval pits, most of which are located in the western part of the plateau, are a type of cistern built to collect rainwater. The round ones have a depth of 1.2 to 3 meters, while the oval ones have a depth of 0.5 meters. The spaces between the obelisks are mostly built as walls with carved stones. There is a stone set along the inner side of the wall. In the construction of the wall, pieces of broken obelisks or stones collected from the surrounding area and processed again were used. 2 centimeters thick clay mortar was used between the stones. Considering that the obelisks are stylized human statues, these walls likely brought people together. However, this mortar caused serious problems. The erosion caused by rainwater and wind led to damage, and it created an easy area for various insects to burrow.
In Layer 3, which provided the most important findings, 4 structures were unearthed in the first year of the excavations and named as A, B, C, and D. In subsequent excavations, 3 more structures named E, F, and G were unearthed. Geomagnetic measurements show that there are at least 20 monumental structures in this way. Common architectural features were determined in these excavated cult structures. The main body of the structures was formed by erecting 10 to 12 large-sized obelisks in a circular plan with certain intervals. The obelisks were connected with a wall and bench made of processed stones. In this way, 2 intertwined walls were built, forming a corridor between them. In the center of the innermost circle, there are 2 larger obelisks placed opposite each other. The obelisks in the center are free, while the surrounding ones are partially buried in the wall and bench row. Of the structures unearthed, the diameters of structures C and D are 30 meters, and the diameter of structure B is 15 meters. Structure A has an oval plan with diameters of approximately 15 and 10 meters. In the center of these 4 structures, there are 2 limestone obelisks with relief decorations, 4 to 5 meters high. The central obelisks of structure D are approximately 5.5 meters high. Similarly, the obelisks on the inner and outer walls, which have reliefs on them, face the ones in the center but are smaller, approximately 3 to 4 meters high. The 2 obelisks in the centers are oriented southeast in the other structures, except structure F, where the direction is southwest. This entire group of structures was deliberately and rapidly covered with a pile during the Neolithic age. Most of this pile consists of limestone fragments, smaller than a fist. However, there are also fragmented objects, most of which are made of flint, such as stone tools and grinding stones, clearly made by human hands. Many broken animal horns and bones were used in this process. Most of the bones have been identified as gazelles and wild cattle. Other animal bones include red deer, onagers, and wild boars. Interestingly, in this filling, in addition to animal bones, human bones were also found, broken into small pieces like the animal bones. Although cannibalism comes to mind first, it seems more likely that it was a burial practice. Subjecting human bodies to certain special processes after death is a tradition identified many times in the Near East of the pre-pottery Neolithic age. The purpose and reason for covering the structures remain unknown. However, the structures have survived to the present day without damage thanks to this pile filling. Contemporary archaeology owes a lot to this pile filling, but it also poses 2 significant difficulties. The loose material of the pile filling created additional challenges during excavation work. The main concern is that radiocarbon dating results may be misleading, as it seems possible that newer pieces were below and older pieces were above when the filling was laid. A pit of approximately 10 meters in diameter in structure C has been known since the beginning of the excavations. During the excavations, it was determined that the pit was made to open the surroundings of the central obelisks and then to break these obelisks into pieces. This purpose was achieved, although not completely, to the extent of breaking the obelisks into pieces. The upper part of the eastern central obelisk was broken into pieces with powerful blows made to open the pit, scattering them around. However, the body remained in place. Nevertheless, intense fragments in the relief bull figure on the body were caused by the effect of a large fire. Based on pottery pieces found in the area, it is suggested that this pit was opened between the Bronze Age and the Iron Age. The floors of these cult structures, except for structures C, D, and E, were not made with the terrazzo technique as generally seen in cult structures dating to the pre-pottery Neolithic age in southeastern Anatolia region. Their floors were obtained by processing the main rock flat and smooth. In other structures, the base is made of slaked lime with the hardness of polished concrete, using the terrazzo technique. The central obelisks in structure C were placed in 50-centimeter base holes opened in the main rock and were placed by compressing the surroundings with small stones and clay. In structure D, the base holes of the central obelisks are 15 centimeters. Structure C has an additional structure that is different from the others. An entrance section extending outwards can be seen in the entrance section facing south. It has the appearance of a dromos, defined as a quadrangular entrance section in structures with a round plan. It is understood that 4 of these temples, A, B, C, and D, are the oldest, and were built approximately 12,000 years ago. It is suggested that similar cult structures were built in Kayonu, Halinsemi, and Navali Kori about 1,000 years after these dates.
Layer 2. No circular structures are seen in Layer 2, instead rectangular structures were used. However, the use of T-shaped obelisks, which are the main architectural elements of the cult structures in Layer 3, continued. The structures in this layer are mostly cult structures. However, it is seen that the size of the structures decreased, as well as the number of obelisks decreased, and they became smaller in size. While the average height of the obelisks in Layer 3 is 3.5 meters, it is 1.5 meters in Layer 2.
A large portion of the small findings, other than architecture, unearthed during the excavations, are stone tools used by the workers here. Almost all of these are tools made of flint. Obsidian stone tools are an exception. The source of the obsidian used in these tools is mostly seen as Binjul A, B, and Goluda in Cappadocia. The fact that the stones used in these tools were from Cappadocia, 500 kilometers away, Lake Van, 250 kilometers away, and northeastern Anatolia, again 500 kilometers away, creates a whole new puzzle. In addition to stone tools, materials carved from limestone and basalt were also found. These mostly include stone vessels, stone beads, small figurines, grinding stones, and pestles. Other small findings include flat axes made of nephrite and amphiolite, and jewelry made of serpentine. In addition to stone tools, many sculptures were unearthed. Some of these are ordinary-sized human heads made of limestone. The fractures suggest that these were broken off from the original sculptures. Aside from the sculptures, another striking find is a totem-like artifact unearthed in the 2011 excavations. The totem, which is 1.87 meters tall and 38 centimeters wide and carved from limestone, features composite compositions and figures.
Wild wheat-type einkorn grains were found in the examination of the excavated soil. No findings regarding domesticated species of the grain have yet been found. The only other plant remains identified are wild species of almonds and peanuts. The findings of animal bones belong to many different animal species. The most common ones among them are the Tigris Basin fauna, such as gazelle, wild cattle, and bustard. Despite this diversity, there is no finding regarding domesticated species.
Human bones were found fragmented. Studies conducted in 2017 revealed that most of these bones belonged to skull fragments. Morphological studies conducted on human skull bone fragments were able to separate bones belonging to 3 different individuals in these bone fragments. It is possible that one of these 3 different individuals is a woman. The gender of the other 2 skulls has not been identified. The skulls belong to individuals between the ages of 20 and 50. Taphonomic studies have shown that 4 different processes were performed on these skull bones: scraping, cutting, drilling, and painting. When these bone fragments of the human skull were brought together in accordance with the skull model, it was revealed that they bore traces that could be hung from above with a rope.
Until the excavations at Göbeklitepe, the scientific world interpreted hunter-gatherer societies thought to be organized in small nomadic groups with rather simple standards.
However, the monumental architecture, large stone carvings, symbolic motifs, and stylized animations that emerged during the excavations as a cult center indicate that the communities in this region must have had a highly developed and multifaceted social structure. All these findings, unearthed at Göbeklitepe, reveal the existence of organizational development in bringing large groups together to carry out such activities, personal artistic skills and ritual impulses, and a kind of understanding and search for art.
In light of these findings, the scientific world needs to review the dominant views on the socio-cultural structure of hunter-gatherer societies.
The scientific world accepted that hunter-gatherer groups were small units, had to struggle to provide food every day, and could only survive that day. Building such cult structures and using these centers for their purposes definitely required withdrawing a large group of people from hunting and gathering, at least for a while. The excavation director Klaus Schmidt and his team think that at least 500 people must have worked to cut and remove the tons of standing stones from the rocks, process them, bring them to Göbeklitepe by covering a distance of almost half a kilometer, and build the structures. Narrator: media, people building ancient structures, transporting large stones using primitive methods, general views of Göbeklitepe site. The results obtained have also caused the generally accepted views on symbolism to change. The traditional view of archaeology on this subject was that only the agricultural revolution provided communities with a plentiful and secure food source in time, and that they were able to develop a monumental architecture and a rich symbolic narrative. However, it is understood that those who built Göbeklitepe were not agricultural communities.
First of all, these people needed to be fed. Considering this situation, it is suggested that the need to provide the nutrients these people needed forced these communities to discover agriculture. Indeed, there are large amounts of animal bones in the filling pile used to cover the level 3 structures later. The number of animal bone fragments found exceeds 100,000. This shows that a lot of meat was consumed at Göbeklitepe. This meat consumption, in addition to meeting the needs of the workers, may have met the needs of people coming from the surrounding area in the ritual feasts held here, and it is even thought to have been used in sacrificial ceremonies. This situation undoubtedly led people to seek wider food sources.
All of these are expressed in archaeologist Ian Hodder's thesis that sociocultural changes took place before agriculture. In this context, in the light of the Göbeklitepe findings, it has been questioned whether the core region of the Neolithic revolution could have been the southern foothills of the Taurus Mountains rather than the Levant.
Another issue emphasized by archaeologists is how hunter-gatherer communities were able to provide the extremely complex organization required for the construction of these structures.
Harold Hauptmann of the German Archaeological Institute suggests that this organization was led by religious leaders.
In this case, it is necessary to accept that an elite stratification emerged in these societies.
Klaus Schmidt also states that the communities that built Göbeklitepe were a stratified society.
However, the dominant perspective in the scientific world until Göbeklitepe was that complex religious practices and organization emerged only in communities where agriculture was the dominant mode of livelihood.
However, Göbeklitepe forces this approach to be questioned.
Indeed, taking the workforce that would create such monumental structures from the hunter-gatherer groups in the surrounding area would only be based on a deep-rooted history of belief.
On the other hand, there is an inevitably remarkable mastery, especially in the animal reliefs. In other words, a stylization that can be called art is seen. They are seen as works made by an expert artist, made by someone who knows that style. Therefore, it is obvious that this style of art must have a long history. On the other hand, similar symbols found at Göbeklitepe, but on a smaller scale, have been unearthed in archaeological excavations carried out in a region extending to northern Iraq and Syria. Based on these data, it is suggested that Göbeklitepe was a center of cultural interaction in the Neolithic period.
Regulation and protection. Göbeklitepe is under the protection of Law Num. 2863 on the protection of cultural and natural assets. It was registered as a first-degree archaeological site with the decision 422 of the Diyarbakır Cultural Assets Protection Regional Board Directorate, dated 27th of September 2005. In the last few years of excavation work carried out at Göbeklitepe, studies have been developed to protect and exhibit the structures and the region as they were discovered. The walls and obelisks are being protected with fabric, sifted soil, wooden construction, and wire mesh lines. However, the threat of looting and external environmental conditions in the long term necessitates special protection of the structures and archaeological artifacts here. As a response to this necessity, the Global Heritage Fund announced in 2010 that a multi-year work program would be carried out for the protection of Göbeklitepe. It is envisaged that studies in this direction will be carried out in cooperation with the Ministry of Culture and Tourism of the Republic of Turkey, Şanlıurfa Municipality, the German Archaeological Institute, and the German Research Fund. The aim of this initiative is to support the establishment of an adequate arrangement for the management of the unearthed structures and their surroundings, the determination of an appropriate protection plan, the construction of a protective cover that will protect the works to be exhibited from weather conditions, and to take the necessary initiatives. Within this framework, it is planned to build the necessary facilities, transportation lines and parking areas, visitor areas for the project team, and to develop the tourism infrastructure in a broad sense as required by the situation.
709,000 people visited the site in 2024.
After the discovery of Göbeklitepe, many more sites belonging to the Neolithic age were found in the surface surveys conducted in the region.
After the detailed research of Karahantepe in 2019, it was revealed that Göbeklitepe was not unique and that there were many similar places in the region.
In 2021, this group of archaeological sites, including Göbeklitepe, was named Tas Tepeler, also known as the Neolithic Age Research Project.
When the project was introduced in 2021, it was stated that the number of archaeological sites within the scope of the project was 12, and that there were 4 more similar sites in an interview attended by project head Necmi Karol in 2022, and that Tas Tepe'le consisted of a total of 16 archaeological sites.
Since most of these archaeological sites are in hilly areas, the project was named Tas Tepe'le.
Don't forget to subscribe to World Wonders Unveiled and turn on notifications.